Hey Fraser, Jeanette, Deborah, Mike. Mike, good to see you. Coral, Brian. Hey Barbara. Hey Jean. Hey Tish, Poppy, Margaret. Christine, Susan. It's a lovely area, Fraser. The rest of you, welcome. What a sunny day. It is so lovely. I'm awake. Hey Trist, thank you so much. Let's pop you around to myself here. So, a very, very sunny day in good old London town, and we're in the southeast, not too far from where I live. Probably, if I was cycling it, which I didn't today, I had a nice little walk here, which took me half an hour. But if I cycled it, it's 8-9 minutes. But I don't live in this area. I kind of wish I did. We're in Blackheath. I'm Gerard. Nice to see you if I haven't seen you before. We're in quite an affluent part of London. Let's see, I'm going to have a little look at the chat. It's very sunny, so I'm going to read what Susan has said. Really excited to be on this tour. I have a friend who lives in Blackheath. Apart from plenty of open space and some great restaurants, not all of them are expensive. Great overground. Well, you've basically given a great introduction to this area of Blackheath. So we're in London. We're in the southeast of London, so hopefully the location map will give you exactly where we are. We're about 6 miles, 10 kilometres from the centre of the West End, about a mile from Greenwich, which is over beyond the trees in that direction. If you go down Maze Hill and take a left, you'll be in Greenwich Park. Yeah, the grass is incredibly dry. And we're about 1.5 miles to 2 miles from where I live. As I said, thank you, Ruth. Thank you so much. The area is quite upmarket. And we're on a lovely little spot right near the Princess of Wales pub. Outskirts of London. If we decided that what we were going to do was walk around the outskirts from here, take a circle around London, we would eventually get to Richmond, Wimbledon, Kew, Hampstead. They all have a similar feel. Good transport, people seem happy, lots of dog walking, lots of greenery. So you often find a lot of the city workers work in this area because they're quite close. They want to drive to Canary Wharf, which is in that direction. Past these bushes, they have a fair over there at the moment. On the edge of Blackheath, that's normally where they start the London Marathon. It's on the top of Greenwich Park. So it's green, or at the moment it's yellow, and it's urban. But the reason I thought I'd take us here today is because it is historic. Some of the most important historical moments in this area were gatherings of people, rallying, rebellions. By the way, I didn't see this earlier, but this is the kind of house that we're talking about. People that live in this area. Yeah, they do all right for themselves. And these aren't even people with plaques outside. These are just regular folks. Yeah, rallying points because of the size, the viewing points, possibly, I suppose, the escape routes in different directions. This became an important historical area for gatherings of people before they went on to maybe have a revolt or a rebellion. The most famous was the Peasants' Revolt. That was in 1381. It was led by a man called Wat Tyler. He led a group of rebels from Canterbury, which would be way over in this direction. Peter has said He thinks Terry Waite lived in Blackheath. He did. Terry Waite was kidnapped and made hostage for 5 years in the Lebanon. And this was his local area. And the local priest of All Saints Church lit a candle for him every day for 5 years until he was eventually released. Canterbury's over in that direction, 50 or so miles away. And this area was the meeting point. So the peasants' revolt. They were marching to London. Why? Well, they were trying to oppose a poll tax. And a poll tax, I don't know if you have these in other countries, but a poll tax, we've had them over the years. They're a tax on individuals, the same amount, whatever the income. So it's vastly unfair. Whatever you earn, it's not the same percentage, it's the same amount. So they marched to basically create social reform. They wanted to end serfdom. And serfdom was the idea if you were a servant, then your family were servants to that family as well. So you lived in servitude, your entire family. Their idea was, if you were a human being, you should be able to work for whoever you wanted. The sky is wonderful in the distance. We're quite near a Roman road. It was called Watling Street. Now it's known, it's got a lovely name now. It's called the A2. It leads to Canterbury, and that's way over in the distance. It has a name, Shooter's Hill. The traffic all the way in that direction. You're talking about Bermondsey and then the Tower of London. Talking about the City of London over in that direction. And there is traffic all the way along Shooter's Hill, which was the old Roman road, one of the only paved streets in the country. Now, when Wat Tyler decided to rebel or revolt, this is where they all gathered. The king was Richard II. He was only 14 at the time, so what did he know? And he met with Tyler in central London, and he agreed to quite a few of the demands. But at some point, we think Tyler got insulted by one of the courtiers, one of the ambassadors, one of the king's people, and started a fight. What ended up happening was that he was executed and his head was put on a spike and carried around London, and the king went back on his promises. This is the Clarendon Hotel. Now, these aren't Victorian buildings, they're mainly Georgian, the 1820s. If we fast forward 70 years to the reign of Henry VI, another group from Kent, actually, again, it was a social uprising. It was for the rights of the working classes. Just want to read what Coral has said. Daughter lived on Shooter's Hill and at Greenwich Uni. That's wonderful. She'll know the area well. So in 70 years, nothing had really changed. Henry VI hadn't changed much, and we had this uprising again of the working classes, and again, somebody was beheaded and their head was displayed all around London. And that time, the leader of the revolt was a man called Jack Cade. And only 2 years after that, Henry VI himself camped here, 24,000 men. Time of revolt, his cousin, the Duke of York, had made a challenge to the throne, and he wasn't far from here with his army, and the king decided to set up camp on Blackheath. In 1497, Henry VII stopped an operation, all the work of the Cornish tin industry. So it wasn't Kent for once. The guys from Cornwall, the Cornish rebels, marched here And there were thousands of them. And unfortunately, Cornwall is a long journey. And because of sickness, death, desertion, the numbers just dwindled, just got lower. And they lost many, many men. And they called it the Battle of Blackheath. And we say Blackheath. Why do we say that? There are many reasons. A lot of people think that in the 1300s, because of the Black Death, that this is where people were buried, but that's simply not true. It comes from two words, bleak and heath. The soil, strangely, even though it's very green, is not that good for growing trees. It grows clover, gorse, grass. And every now and then you have to manage that by burning it. So this area would have looked quite bleak, would have been dark heather as well. But Charles Dickens seemed to like it. He described Blackheath in an essay in the magazine All the Year Round as being a wonderful romantic place in this old green London lung. Travel in this area was pretty precarious, already hazardous in the 1600s. You only had the one paved street and all the rebellions happening. From the late 1600s to the 1800s, this part of the country was more or less barren wilderness. Definitely would have been more of a village in Dickens' time. It's still considered Blackheath Village, but everything's expanded now, so you often find apartment blocks linking these villages. There's a Deptford village, the Greenwich village, and Lee, which is further along to the left, and then Grove Park and Hither Green, where I live. They all seem to be linked now by either large shops or apartment blocks, but they would have had barren wasteland in between. Because he had the Roman road not far from here, it was perfect for highwaymen. Men on horseback using flintlock pistols. One of the most famous is Dick Turpin. He would cry, "Stand and deliver, your money or your life." And then they'd ride off into the dark distance. You do know John Wright, he does a wonderful tour in York about Dick Turpin. We have a pub here called 0 Degrees, so we're very close to Greenwich. In 1884, longitude was established, not far from here, so this became the meridian line. This area is 0 degrees. It's also a microbrewery. Was that Adam and the Ants, Ginny has said? Yes. If nobody knows Adam and the Ants. In the 80s, Adam and the Ants, and Marco Peroni was guitarist. Well, he was like the Bowie of his day, wasn't he? Some of the road names here were on Montpellier Avenue. Earlier on, when I was testing the signal, I thought I'd go along here. Tranquil Passage. So it's been a home and a site of rebellion. It still has these names. In the 1550s, Queen Mary decided to marry Philip of Spain. We had a Spanish Inquisition not long before, and Thomas Wyatt, who was a politician, he raised a small army, disagreed with the marriage, as many did back then. This new friendship with Spain he didn't approve of. But they were soon defeated, but it was another rebellion of sorts. Now, we don't have any public schools. We call them public schools, but they're private. But some of the prep schools, as in pre-elementary schools in this area, are independent. You do have to pay a fee to come here. At 5 years old, they then get sent to a proper school. The 1640s, we had something called the Kentish Petition. The Gordon riots we had in the 1780s, probably the closest this country ever came to a full-on revolution. It was motivated really by anti-Catholic sentiments. Now, these folks hopefully won't mind me just showing their shop front. At the fabric shop. It's hidden down a small dark alleyway. Yeah, Dawn said I always thought it was odd to call them public schools. Coral, you're right, they get free advertising. That's what a lot of people think when we talk about sponsorship. When people are saying, oh, it would be good to have sponsors. I think people are expecting maybe one day my tour would start and I'd have stickers or tattoos of shops or McDonald's, Dyson vacuum cleaners. I hope that's not the case. And you had Chartism, who started here. This was a gathering point, this little spot here on Tranquil Vale in the 1830s. Again, a movement to achieve political rights for working class people. Then the suffragettes, they met here. House for sale just to the left. That's a shop. Could set something up, couldn't we? Yeah, the suffragette or the suffragist meetings were here in the 1900s. There's something called the pillar box outrages. That's what the press knew them as, where they would deface or paint slogans on the post and pillar boxes. If you look at the old newspaper cuttings from the time, most of it happened in the southeast. A very strong suffragette branch in this area. The two most recent gatherings politically been for the poll tax again in the 1980s. It was prompted by the Thatcher government deciding to tax everyone again the same amount. Didn't matter what they earned, they were going to be charged the same amount, not the same percentage, the same amount. They had demonstrations and concerts in this area. June said the screen keeps going black. Seems all right, June, where we are. Maybe the odd little glitch as we went through that alleyway, but the screen seems okay right now. In 2009, and another couple of times since, we've had climate change gatherings in this area as well. So it seems that Blackheath itself is an area for gathering, whether it be rebellion or celebration. There's a festival on Blackheath which runs here every year. Obviously with COVID, a couple of times it didn't happen. Every year an enormous fireworks display happens here. Let me see if I can find a couple of pictures for you. When the Olympics were on, the tickets sold very quickly, so all over Blackheath they had screens that people could just watch. Very difficult to get tickets for any of the Olympic events. Most of the equestrian, the horse events were in this area. around the Maritime Museum, Greenwich Palace. And then they have a festival on Blackheath. Often you get the band Squeeze play here, and they used to have a keyboard player named Jules Holland. If you watch the BBC, you have a TV show later with Jules Holland. He lives just in this area. Charity runs, fun fairs. One of the great things from my point of view is on the 23rd of May 1660, Charles II set sail from then Holland, arrived here, Blackheath, on the 29th of May, and it was called the Restoration of the Monarchy, and he changed everything. From 1660, the theatres were open again. Fun had essentially been banned under Puritan rule. He was restored to the throne, and he brought theatre back to this country. Because I do so many theatre tours, I kind of have him to thank, really, for me doing them. And there were thousands of people on Blackheath to commemorate and celebrate his arrival back in England. They're not very clever with their names, so we had the fabric shop round the corner. This is called the Bookshop. Brenda said it reminds her a bit of Dover. That's interesting. I suppose it is like it. Colours of the buildings as well. They have brightened this place up in the last couple of years. It has been painted. The bookshop on the Heath is actually known as. Gillian has asked, do I live near here? Walking half an hour, cycling less than 10 minutes. But I don't live in this kind of affluence. They sell a lot of maps here. I have one from Blackheath here from 1895. Just the local streets. They haven't changed really. This is from 1898. What they call a poverty map. So the different colours, the darker the red, the more poverty-stricken the area of London. Most of those poverty maps, it was a man named Charles Booth created them. A lot of them were in the West End and the city, but this was a poverty map in the southeast of London. Barbara said, remembered looking at maps when I was a child. They are so interesting. This is from the 1800s as well. It's called Crutchley's New Plan of London. The idea of map making in this country, it was fraught with intrigue because the Portuguese, the Spanish, and the English were trying to map out the world. They were trying to circumnavigate the globe. And they often created fake maps and would accidentally leave them somewhere, a coffee shop or an exchange like a shopping mall, knowing that maybe a Portuguese sailor or a Spanish courtier would get hold of it and then say, oh, this part of the sea around South America is only a mile. We could easily travel that, traverse that, and then realize when they get there that it's 100 miles. Stephen has said a poverty map is new to me. Yeah, Charles Booth in the 1800s created the poverty map of London. It's fascinating. From my point of view, there aren't many places in England with as much rebellious history as this small little village. It seems York is one of those places as well. many sites in the country associated with revolution, but York and Blackheath, those names seem to come up whenever you do your research. And I know that John Wright, his tours are fantastic. If you ever get to catch one of those, talks about the history, the political upheavals in York. And as I mentioned, Dick Turpin would have hung out in this area. He was executed in York. So there's a great link to it there alone. Belligerent Blackheath, I like that. This is All Saints Church. The architect was a man named Benjamin Ferry. He designed over 100 churches. It's in the Gothic Revival style. Opened on All Saints' Day, November the 1st, 1858. A lot of southeast London, underneath where we are now, we discovered there was quite a bit of oil. It could be in the southeast of England up to 150 million barrels per square mile. There was a campaign a few years back by certain companies. They wanted to dig up Blackheath because they thought there was lots of oil under it. But I wouldn't expect that oil wells would be here anytime soon. It's a protected site. It's a conservation area. The only thing that's been allowed, the only building structure for hundreds of years is the church. The end of the 1500s, Queen Elizabeth was in discussions to marry James VI of Scotland. Never happened, but his courtiers, his diplomats, his entourage, they played golf here. They came to this area, they played golf. Golf came from Scotland. Way up in the distance, unfortunately we can't get into it because they do charge you for membership, is the Royal Blackheath Golf Club. It was founded in 1608, so it's the oldest golf club still in continuous use in the world. I might have a picture of the actual building itself. Hockey, synonymous with Blackheath. One of the oldest rugby clubs in the world here too. A lot of people that come from overseas, the Kiwis and the Aussies, when they're watching a game at Twickenham, they'll come here because this is one of the founding areas of rugby as we know it in this country. The fireworks display every year is beautiful. From this direction, I'm going to show you a picture of what it looks like. So you've got the church in the distance, and it does look phenomenal. Might see if I can get a vertical shot. All Saints Church. Beautiful blue sky. And going back to horizontal, not me, the phone. I love the area. Taking a nice view around. Hopefully that was something enjoyable, folks. It's quite windy where I am right now, but I do hopefully have the covering still there, hasn't blown off. And look how yellow it is. Gradually the green's coming through. They say life finds a way. But just to say, this would have all been burnt years ago. Every few months they would have burnt down the grass behind us. So it would have had that dark look, a bleak heath. Helen can hear the wind. Yeah, it's extremely windy. I think we've done all right. Thank you so much for joining me. Love to hear more history. Wouldn't it be good? There's too much of it in this area. We'll take another walk here and we'll extend the tour. I scheduled it for 30 minutes. And people, if you know what I'm like, I don't like to run too much over. I often do, and I feel awful for it because other people have scheduled tours, sometimes around what the rest of us have been doing. But we'll schedule it again. We'll extend it. I'm in Dulwich tomorrow, as Barbara has reminded me. Dulwich is again historical. We're going to talk a bit more about theatre in that area because it was home to a man named Edward Alleyne, Ned Alleyne, who was an actor in Shakespeare's time. Thank you so much. The chat is so bright. I'm trying to look at comments here. Thank you, Marta and Helen and Robin and Dawn. Thank you, Stephen. Dulwich Picture Gallery. Maybe we'll try and pay to get in there one day. We'll see what they allow us. Thank you, Barbara, Glenda, Coral, and Darren. I need to find an extender for this so that my face isn't obscuring every single thing behind me. Lovely, lovely to see you. I should have found some shade. Maybe I will over here. I'll hide just in front of the church. Lovely church doors. Gillian's going to miss tomorrow's. Well, we'll reschedule. If these tours work well, there's no chance that you only do them once. Thanks so much for supporting me as usual. If it's the first time you've met me, do go on the channel page and click on follow, and then you get to hear what I'm up to. There's quite a few coming up. We've got a George Orwell walk, we've got a Lord Byron, H.G. Wells, all in areas where they lived or were important to them. Laurence Olivier. I love doing them. Thank you, Jeanette. Susan. And Heather, of course. Best way to get here from central London, tube or bus? I would say the overground train from London Bridge is the best. Get to London Bridge, or Charing Cross, or Cannon Street, and it's about 15 minutes on the train. We didn't get to see in any of the restaurants, but that's okay. You can look those up. There are great ones in the area. And we didn't get to see the other side of the village, so way, way beyond where we walked down that tranquil vale. Behind that, there's another entire section. So I did this as a 35-minute tour, but I think we could easily get an hour out of it with more history and more of the locale in the distance. Closer to where I live, we could eventually end up going to my door. Maybe we could cycle the last 5 minutes of the journey. Thank you, Stephen. Yes, do. Yeah, the chimneys on the house. Look at the amount of chimneys there, by the way. Let's see if I can zoom in on that. Oh, wait. Chimney, yeah? Thank you, Lynn. So I know it all works. I know the tour seems to be quite successful. I didn't fall over. We got a lovely view, so the next time we do this, I'll extend it and add a bit more history. Lots of love to you all. And see you tomorrow. I think it's about 3 o'clock in Dulwich. Also, I did 1 a.m. my time. I read M.R. James's A School Story, which was a ghost story by candlelight last night. And it seemed to go really well. If you don't know me, I've been an actor 25 years, so I like to mix the acting with the tour guiding. And on Monday evening, 11:45 UK time, oh, thank you, Sharon, we're going to do Charles Dickens' The Signal Man, which is one of the greatest ghost stories ever written. And thank you so much, Tish, again. Gillian fell asleep before it started. Well, luckily you didn't fall asleep as it was going. Otherwise, that would be really embarrassing for me. And I got some good advice from one of the voyagers. When I start those ghost stories, have a good 10-15 minutes before and give you a bit of information as to the history of the story and the history of the writer and the life and times of that person, because I think I started the story quite quickly, and if people join 5 minutes in, you don't get the whole effect. So we'll do that Monday evening. I'm always learning. Lots of love to you all, and I am going to walk in this direction here. And I'm going to go home and have a nice cuppa. Lots of love to you all. I will see you, hopefully, tomorrow. If not, I'll see you in the next few days. There's plenty more coming up. Thanks again for all your support. Some amazing guides in London, quite a few of us now. We support them all. We all do things our own way, and they're all an inspiration. And so many great guides around the world. So we're really happy to be part of this. Kind of changed everything for a lot of us, especially in the acting profession. The work wasn't there, the auditions had dried up. And yeah, Heygo kind of changed everything. So you guys have changed everything. And yeah, I won't forget that. So the tours will continue. And there should hopefully be even more of them soon. Lots of love. Thank you. Had any auditions? Yeah, I've had a few tapes that I've sent in. Thank you, Susan. I sent in a tape for a Sky TV children's drama the other day. It was very simple. Just did a couple of lines. It was all about the kid, really. It's a kid's drama. It was all about the kid. I just played the kid's dad. And I couldn't get anyone to film or to record the other voice. So I did the voice of the dad, and then I redubbed my own voice as a child because it was such a last-minute thing. So I played an 8-year-old child as well. Very versatile. Oh, Heather, thank you. Thank you, Anne-Catherine. Maybe I'll do a whole tour as an 8-year-old child one day. We'll see. I just can't get enough of the sky tonight. This afternoon. Yesterday it was a very dull afternoon. It's so warm now. Talking 23, 24 Celsius centigrade. Thank you so much. Thank you, Coral. Take care. Look at me carrying on. I'll see you tomorrow. See you in Dulwich. Do join me. It's an amazing area and there's so much history. It's going to be a lot to do with theatre. So I apologise for that in advance. Take care. Bye-bye.